Hello and welcome to Filmi Ladies. We are Pitu and Beth, and today we're starting a really small, sort of like limited edition series of 5 episodes that we're going to call our starter series. So I feel like, I don't know about you, Beth, but I feel like I am often meeting people that tell me that they are very interested in watching Bollywood movies, especially when they hear I have a Bollywood podcast. But then in the same breath, they also tell me how overwhelming they think it is to get into Bollywood because there's just so much and they don't know where to start. This is also the way I feel about Iranian cinema and French cinema. Like, it's too scary. And I'm like, I don't know where to begin. So we thought it might be fun to do like a little series where we talk about sort of like entry level Bollywood films that people should try, that we think that a person would enjoy even if they know absolutely nothing about Indian filmmaking. You don't need to know a lot about like Indian culture either, and they're good starter movies so that you can kind of like get your feet wet a little bit, and then hopefully we'll convert you and then you'll come over to our side, and then you'll, before you know it, you'll be like some Bollywood expert. Obviously this does not mean that these episodes cannot be enjoyed by our usual subscribers. Obviously our normal viewers and listeners are used to us doing some pretty cuckoo, very nerdy deep dives, where we hash out the most mundane things. But, we're hoping to cover some films that we shockingly haven't spoken about on the podcast much. And so, even if you are very much a bona fide Bollywood expert and raised on a Bollywood diet, please continue watching this series and tell us what you think about the movies we've picked. So, in this episode, both Beth and I have picked romance movies just coincidentally. And my movie is called Jab We Met. It's from 2007. You can actually watch the whole film on YouTube. So I'm going to put a link in the caption that you can see it. And Beth, do you want to tell people what your movie is?
Yes, I picked Paheli from 2005.
Ooh, we're from the same era, actually. The great 2000s. Why did you pick Paheli?
I picked Paheli because it was the first thing that came to mind when you suggested we do a series like this, because I have used it as a starter recommendation for people before, and to my knowledge, that's gone well. Now, maybe people were just being polite, but I have had limited. I have not done a whole lot of it feels like it's a lot to recommend something to someone, right? Sometimes, especially if I don't know them very well. So I haven't done a ton of recommending on a one-to-one level, but this is one I've used.
Mm.
I believe in it.
Yeah. Same. I feel like I usually get tongue tied when people ask me what movies they should watch because, like, all these million movies come into my mind, and then I immediately realize that they're going to be too meta or they're going to be too complicated, or the vernacular in those films. Like, how do you recommend Gangs of Wasseypur, for example, to a person who's never seen Hindi cinema? I mean, even to someone like me who was a born and raised Indian, I need subtitles to understand that film, even with the captions and everything. And it's just so complex and has so many layers. So to some extent, you're trying to find something that's like an easy primer, but also is not so basic and stupid that the person is going to be like, well, that's boring. So it's like a little bit of a challenge, I think. And so then, do you want to tell people what Paheli's story is?
Absolutely. So I'll start by saying that if you decide you would like to watch this movie or you watch it and then you want more, we've done a whole episode on it and that will be linked in the notes to this episode in YouTube. I picked this because, as you said, it's a romance, and I think getting your brain a taste of romance is very key to understanding mainstream Hindi cinema, right? Which is what we mean when we say
Yeah.
good, typically. Um, so that's important. It stars two people that I think are important. So we have
Hmm.
the mega combination of Shah Rukh Khan and Rani Mukherjee, both of whom are favorites of mine, and one of whom is a very much a favorite of Pitu as well. Um, and then I think this movie is very high on the kind of razzle dazzle beauty that mainstream Hindi cinema can do so very well. And if you are someone who has watched American movie musicals and likes
Mm.
even stage musical, I think there's a lot about that that will transfer well to Paheli for you. Plot wise, it is a story of two people who fall in love, basically, and the impediment is that one of them is already married and the other is a ghost. And the ghost is embodying the is looks like the husband. So it doesn't seem like anything is amiss, but actually um the husband has been called away for work. And so at some point there are going to be two of them and they have to figure out kind of how to handle this. And I, this is a movie that's about several things, I think, but it's also not exceptionally intellectually challenging or overly deep. You can just watch for the beauty or the steaminess or whatever and enjoy it very, very much and fully experience this film. I do think it's maybe about a few things as well. One of them being women's choice and women's love and women's desire, which is not super common across mainstream Hindi cinema. So it
Mhm.
offers some very standard, I don't mean standard as in bad, I just mean like very regular things, but packaged in a fairly different way. And it is based, of course, on a folk tale, which adds to the kind of um, you almost feel like you're in an imaginary land in this movie, which I think for some people can decrease the feeling that I need to understand a lot about India to get this. You don't.
Mhm.
Don't. You can enjoy this as a fable, as a story,
Mhm.
as a kind of a fairy tale sort of thing, and you will get it perfectly fine.
Yeah, there's that magic realism aspect to it that anyone who has loved, for example, the movie Chocolat would enjoy, or someone who likes Mary Poppins. I know Mary Poppins is not romance, but just
Oh,
saying,
interesting. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just kind of like defies logic. You don't have to
Yeah.
like do math equations when you're watching this movie. You can just like be carried along
Yes.
for the ride. And I think also perhaps when people think of India, and if they have never been to India, for example, like I have so many American friends here in California who've never been to India. They want to go, but again, they're overwhelmed because
Yeah.
they're like, but there's so much to see. How can I go for 2 weeks? I think again, for people like that, would I necessarily recommend Gully Boy or Masan? Maybe not, because those movies are not what people think of when they think of India. Those are also India, and that's important. But I think when people think of India, they're thinking of the palaces in Rajasthan, and they're thinking
Yes.
of the bright colors, and they're thinking
Yeah.
of the prettiness.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with wanting that. I mean, if I go to Morocco, I want to see a Riyadh. I don't want to go to Morocco and see like a very modern contemporary sculpture or building, right? And so I think that Paheli can also kind of
It
it's
takes
just
that.
it's so beautiful.
So beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And Shah Rukh Khan in a mustache. Oh
I
my
mean,
lord.
as we discussed in our episode, it does in some ways cater to an appeal to the exotic.
Yes.
However, it also does that for many Indian audiences because
Yeah.
of where it's set and that it's set kind of in a past time, but we're not particularly sure when, and it doesn't really matter. Uh,
Hmm.
so Rajasthan is exotic to many Indians as well. So
Yes.
kind of, I want to put an asterisk there. So like that is an important thing to keep in mind, but also that you would be joining many of this film's primary intended audiences in reacting that way and being swept up in the sort of magic of the locations and the colors
Hmm.
and things like that.
Yeah. I think the music and dances in this movie are really pretty as well. And again, if someone I think wants to see a Bollywood movie for the first time, Paheli is just such a nice movie in terms of all the choreography and all the beautiful songs and the music and even the background score. Everything about it is just so pretty and charming and pleasant, but at its core, it's very much a feminist
Yeah.
tale. And I think that's
Charming
important
is a
too.
great word to use. I'm glad you said that one. I think I find it's hard to imagine not being charmed by this movie if you are
Yeah.
willing to watch a romance. Like if you don't
Yeah.
like romances, this is not a movie for you probably, which is why we're each going to recommend five over the course of this series. But this is, yeah, if you are someone who likes to be charmed by love, then I think this will do for you.
Yeah. I also like the title. Paheli means riddle.
Right.
And is this definitely like a folk tale and a fable, and definitely something that kind of like defies normal logic and normal relationships. There's nothing normal about this movie, not the characters in it or anything. And I think this is like such a good movie to just be swept up in and just like be swept up in the magic. And then, it'll just hopefully be like a good entryway
Mhm.
to Bollywood. And also, like you mentioned, it has Shah Rukh Khan in it, who I feel like even if a lot of Americans don't necessarily know Bollywood that well, they've heard of two names. They've heard of Shah Rukh Khan and they've heard of Aishwarya Rai. And
Mhm.
so this is probably a good window into what makes him the absolutely ginormous mega star that he is. Like, it's crazy the reach that he has. My movie is a little bit different. My movie is, of course, 2007's Jab We Met. And this does not take place in an exotic, faraway, beautiful land of castles and palaces. This primarily takes place in a road trip, and it's about a very feisty, very spunky, very vivacious, very naive female protagonist who is played by Kareena Kapoor. And she's running away from home and from her home, which is in Mumbai, and she meets this very shy, very introverted, very academic leaning boy who is undergoing a lot of family stress, and she basically wears him down into having a friendship with her. There's a few missed connections, a few missed trains, and she tasks him with getting her back to her hometown. Along the way, there is a little bit of a love triangle. This woman is in love with someone that we will eventually discover whether he is really worthy of her or not. And like Paheli, this movie also asks questions about women and whom they love and why they love them, and ask questions about, like, are you even loving people who are deserving of your love, or are you just like throwing it away on people who don't know what to do with it? Um, and it's just like it's just a very fun romantic adventure and a road trip. This movie will give you a lot of access to like exotic locations in India, as a part of their road trip. Like, they're taking a jeep, they're taking trains and all of these things, and they're traveling from the western coast of India, which is where Mumbai is, all the way up north to Patinda, which is in the state of Punjab, which is in the north. And there's all these different towns that they encounter along the way. Some are smaller, I mean, most of them are smaller towns, and just the interesting people that they encounter. It's just a fun, adventurous kind of a movie. And I feel like this movie, when every time I've seen this film, I've had a big smile on my face from start to finish, because the character that is played by the lead actress, which is Kareena Kapoor, I think that character is just so endearing. Is she irritating at times? Absolutely. Do you wish she would shut up at times? Absolutely. But there's something very innocent, endearing, and naive about her. And she's such a good natured person that you really want good things for her, even though you wish she would shut up sometimes. Um, and so I think, again, like Paheli, it's a very charming movie. It's very sweet. It gives you a more realistic idea of what modern relationships in India are like compared to a movie like Paheli. It gives you more of a notion of what urban girls in India are like and what they want. And at the same time, it gives you a little bit of an insight into generational conflict. So, for example, in this movie, the lead character is in love with a boy that she knows her family is never going to accept. But the reason they won't accept him is because they're Sikh and he's Hindu. So the fact that he's from a different religion is the biggest reason why they won't accept him. And that might sound surprising or shocking to a lot of Americans, but in India, that is very much a very normal thing for your parents to have a grievance about. And the fact that she feels like there's no way they're going to listen to her, and that she basically just is going to have to run away, and the ramifications of that, I think, is interesting. It's also a good film because it shows you how she learns and grows during the course of the film. By the end of the film, she's no longer as naive and impulsive and like living in a bubble as she was in the beginning. There's a part of us that is going to wish she still was, because it's kind of sad to see her like a little bit deflated. And the main male lead, who was played by Shahid Kapoor, that guy became like a gigantic heartthrob when this movie came out. Like, girls were just absolutely swooning for him because he's just so gentlemanly and sweet and nice, especially compared and contrasted with the guy that she's actually in love with. This is also an interesting movie to get into because the lead actress Kareena Kapoor belongs to the fourth generation of the Kapoor family, which you cannot talk about Bollywood without talking about the Kapoors. They are bigger than the Barrymores, they're bigger than the Baldwins. I don't even think that there is like a Hollywood family that is of the same level and lineage as the Kapoors are. And she's from the fourth generation of that family, and she's extraordinarily talented, and both Beth and I like her very much, and we've done an episode on her. So if you like her performance in this film, there are other films that we could recommend that you should watch. So Jab We Met is like a fun comfort movie. I would say if you enjoy Bridget Jones' Diary, if you like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, if you like those kind of like frothy rom-coms, then I think you're gonna like Jab We Met. And if you like that specific, very vivacious, blonde character that is played by actresses like Kate Hudson or Goldie Hawn or Reese Witherspoon, again, you're gonna like her. She's kind of in that mold, so that's kind of what you can expect going in. Whereas Shahid Kapoor's character, he's more of like the strong, silent, more cerebral types. Again, very good music, very good dances in this film, and it's just a really good, fun movie. I
Mhm.
think to watch. I think this would be a great movie for a bunch of girls to watch together. Don't you
Mhm.
think, Beth? Like,
Yeah,
it's a good Galentine's movie
yeah, it would be.
where like three or four girls get together, have wine and ice cream and cookies and all kinds of non-nutritious, delicious food, and they just watch Up We Met. I think that would be a lot of fun. Um,
There's
okay.
a freshness to that movie that is again that sets it apart. It's not that you don't see it anywhere else, but
Yeah.
it's seen so very well here, mainly centered on Karina, although also in Shahid as well. Like it's not that both of our leads are dealing with that in some way, and it's I suspect if you Google this film, it would be hard to read any kind of analysis of it that doesn't talk about refreshing or air or,
Yeah.
and then of course talkativeness, which is a very big thing for that character. And um, there's a, there's kind of a contemporariness to this, which feels important, even though it is no longer exactly contemporary since we are so many years past it now.
Yeah.
But there is, and you do see characters like this in other eras of Bollywood, but this is an important entry as a reminder of what women leads can be like and
Mhm.
stories, the stories that they can be a part of. Um, and the desire to get up and go is sometimes, I think that comes to many of us at some point in our lives, right? For various reasons.
Right.
But I love that this movie has a lot of get up and go.
Yeah. It's a very sprightly movie, right?
It
Like
is
it's
motion.
not a movie that ever sits still at any
No,
point.
doesn't.
None of the characters ever like stop doing a lot of things. There's a lot of motion, a lot of activity, a lot of like whirlwind things happening.
And you will see it is a little bit of a sightseeing film for India, right? Too. So again, if you're
Yeah.
new to thinking about India, beyond kind of basic geopolitical knowledge, you'll get it's not a full sampler platter, but it's a little bit of a taste of some different urban and not, north and other areas. It does take place partly in a part of the country that you don't see in film nearly as often.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. Um, so yeah, I think it's a great entry for a first film, and I don't believe I have ever recommended this one, but I definitely would consider it. I think it's a strong choice.
Yeah. I think it would also appeal to, like, I know that Korean movies, for example, have made such a huge inroad into America. Like, I know so many Americans and especially so many Gen X people from our generation that I thought would be a little bit slower to get into like the K-pop bandwagon or the K-drama bandwagon. And so many people that I know have seen multiple Korean shows. I think that Jab We Met will also appeal to those people because
Mhm.
there are some similarities I can see between Karina's character and the kind of girl characters that you see in some of the K-dramas that I've seen. And there is that slow burn aspect to it also, which will be appealing. So yeah, those are our two choices.
Can I ask, like it's fun that we both picked a romance for this first one. What would you say are similarities in the romances, and what would you say are differences in the romances in these movies, if in fact you see any similarities at all?
Similarities, I think in both of these films, it's the actress who has the author back role.
Yes, true.
We know exactly who Lachi, the character in Paheli, is, and we know exactly who Geet is. And they're very different women. I don't know if Lachi and Geet, if they were to meet, I mean, first of all, they cannot meet because they're from different eras. But even if they were to meet, I don't know if they would be friends with each other. I suspect that they may not actually get along that well. But I like that they have very consistent personalities in whom they are. And I think the romance aspect also, I like the fact that both of them, I like that the movie shows us these very kind and appreciative men who respect them and value them. I hate it when I watch a movie and the movie and the director and the writer are trying to tell me that I should find a clearly problematic man attractive and appealing. And I'm like, no, I don't buy that. That is nonsense. And you're not going to convince me of that. So I like it very much when I don't have to fight the director and the writer. And when they say, here's a lovely man, and I'm like, yes, he is in fact lovely, and I'm happy that Lachi and Geet have chosen him, you know.
Doing American Sign Language for applause. Like, yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't have to fight the director and the writer. I love it. We fight them all the time and
we
we
do.
a lot. Can
We get
this
mad a lot on this
so
podcast.
well. Yeah.
We're like, no sir, I object. We do not object with these films.
This is
Paheli, of
why,
course, does have the advantage of being written by a woman, which I think always
yes.
helps. Like, this is a woman character written by a woman. This is a male character, Shahruk's character, also written by a woman. So I think the fact that the writer happens to be a known writer, attorney, feminist, I think really helps. But Jab We Met is actually written and directed by a man, by Imtiaz Ali. And I'm actually surprised by how well he wrote this character because, as longtime listeners of this podcast are aware, I am not always a fan of Imtiaz Ali's writing or direction, especially the way he portrays women. But this is one of the few films where I think he's done a stellar job with writing his woman character.
Mm.
What about you, Beth? Do you see any similarities or dissimilarities?
No, and well, I see some dissimilarities, and I'm glad you
Mm,
went first because I I had this question without being able to answer it. But and I'm kind of thinking about, this is a question that maybe would appeal to some of our listeners who have seen both these movies, but maybe
mm,
it's been a while or you never got to one of them. But um, I mean, for lack of another word off the top of my head, it's like vibes. The vibes of these movies are very different. So Jab We
they
Met
are.
feel quite real
Yeah.
in a way, like in a dramatized way, but it's
Hmm.
this is not a fantasy world in the same way. There are no supernatural figures. There are no like sparkles flying through the air or little
Yeah.
trees to indicate that a ghost has gone by in the form of a bird or
Yeah.
talking puppets in Jab We Met, although there are amazing dancing figures of in costumes, but
Well,
um
Geet talks so much, there is no need for talking
right,
puppets.
right. Um so yeah, and that I think in terms of similarities, it's been a while since I've seen Jab We Met, but I do feel that we see contrasts in both the
Mm,
movies, right? These are both kind of um the two men that we see Geet, having an
mm,
interest in are very different from one another. And same with poor Lachi, with who is, has an arranged marriage to someone who is not a bad man at all.
right.
Very unsuitable for her. Very, and maybe for anyone. Like he doesn't seem like a person who all he cares about is business. He's
Yeah.
really able to think about another person very well, although he does try here and there, but like, versus complete romance fantasy lead who is
Hmm.
everything that Lucci wants as though conjured by magic,
Yeah.
although she did not conjure him up. He saw her and like, but maybe she did conjure him up. I think that's an interpretation you could kind
Right.
of take, especially if you're not reading the text of the novel or something like that. But um so that, yeah, I think they deal with contrast very nicely. And rarely in life is it quite so clear as like, oh, here is the dream man for me, and he's available and he's
Right.
here and he's interested too. But like it's a funny, we see women figuring it out, you know,
Hmm.
and being able to
Yeah.
have
I think, yeah, that's really integral. It's like in both of these films, the women have so much agency. The director and the writing give them a lot of agency to basically make their own decisions. And do they make a few mistakes? Sure.
Oh yeah,
Geet especially makes a lot of mistakes,
she does.
but they're her mistakes to make, and it's better for her to make those mistakes and stumble and fall and get up and rise again, and rather than a life where she's just doing whatever she's being told to do. And I think that's also why we as viewers kind of root for these women, right? Because we want them to have good lives and we see how hard they're striving to achieve whatever it is that they want. Yeah, I mean, they're really good female role models, aren't they? These two
Yeah,
characters.
yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to
Well,
be friends with Lachi and Geet?
I only pause because Lachi, like again, she's kind of imaginary and she's from
Yeah.
your. But I think if
She could be friends with Juliette Binoche from Chocolat. They'd get along, I think.
yeah, I would definitely be friends with Geet. I think I can get
Yeah.
along with some Geets, and I have a few Geet-like characteristics myself, I suspect. But um, someone who wants to be in a podcast likes to talk. Go figure.
I was actually thinking about that, like the fact that like when we watch this movie, we have no idea what Geet does. I mean, she talks about how she's studying in a hostel, but I have no idea what she's studying or if she's even studying. I have no idea if she wants to have any sort of career. I suspect not, because she does make comments about how she's been obsessed with being married since she was little, and she's obsessed with this one specific man that we learn more about. And I was like, you would be a great podcast host. The problem is Geet would never let anyone else get a word in edgewise. So
Right.
she could
Well,
be a motivational speaker.
yeah. This is a lovely pairing, I think. I feel very good.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
one more quick question. What do you feel your film offers people who maybe aren't as into romance, but their friend really wanted to watch it, so they're going to watch it too? What would you say people should look out for in addition to the romance and maybe the author-backed women in your film?
I think they'll get a chance to think about what it means for people to grow up.
Mm,
Not just grow up like chronologically, like, oh, it's your birthday and you're gonna blow out some birthday candles, but more like what it means, because I feel like all of us at some point have to grow up in life, and we kind of have to shed some of the more idealistic or naive notions that we had. It doesn't mean you have to like automatically become like jaded or bitter or anything like that, but you do have to like come to terms with some ground realities. And I think Jab We Met is a good exploration of what happens when a person is inherently very naive, very sheltered, has never really had genuine conflict in their life, genuine problems in their life. And the first time they hit a roadblock, they have absolutely no idea what to do. But they get out of it, and they try, and they fall, and they rise up again. And I think that's very interesting. It's an interesting character delineation, even if you don't care about the romance aspect for it, because in this movie, yes, there is a romance, but he could just be her friend. In fact, that's kind of how they start out. They just start out as like co-travelers who become friends, and the romance part could be or could not be, even it would be fine either way. But I think really what it is kind of seeing this very childlike person learn who they are
mm.
and try to come to terms with who they are. So it's more like a, what is that genre of film, Beth, where it's coming of age.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, generally coming of age films skew a lot younger than this, movies like Stand By Me and stuff, but this is a little bit like that, like on an emotional level, I think.
Mhm.
So what about you? What do you think?
I like that Paheli touches very lightly on kind of the shadow side of charm and magic because
Mm,
we're trying to avoid spoilers here, so I don't want to
yes.
say too much, but not absolutely everyone is captivated by the ghost.
Yes.
And there is some confrontation of certain realities and things like that towards the end of the film, which are handled with charm and are handled with, I would say, a lightness of touch, but it's there if you want to look for it, or if you a second watch through or whatever you choose to think about it, like, you know, for whom is this not working? Is
Mm,
there to be dealt with. And there is of course, an earlier version of this film called Duvida, which is much darker
yes.
than Paheli. So if you get interested in that, there's another option for you to watch it, and I believe we have a link for where that is viewable. Um, So there are, as with many fairy tales, right? There's something kind of darker lurking under the surface. Even in
Yeah,
I'm not just talking like German original Disney retelling, like
right.
not quite as overt as that, but there's a little bit under there because usually for someone to win, someone else has to lose or something like that to gain or to lose, whatever. So there's a little bit of that among the literally golden sparkle of the rest of the rest
Yeah.
of the movie.
I mean, it's like the writer and the director have very much spellbound you,
Yeah.
and the ghost has spellbound you. But there are ethical questions that perhaps we are very conveniently choosing not to talk about, not to think about, because you know what? It would be inconvenient and uncomfortable. And there is really, apart from the character that I know you're talking about, there is that scene where the husband does have to talk about his own feelings, and I think that's something that very few people pick up on or really talk about. But you're right, like underneath every fairy tale and underneath all of that glamour and charm and enchantment, there
Exactly.
is there is very much a slightly darker,
There's a reality that's
twisty,
still kind of
that's
bubbling.
like bubbling up.
And in this
Yeah.
one, you mentioned the family and in Jub We Met. There's a family in this one too. And
Hmm.
what do they have to say about some of this once
Yeah.
a little taste of what's going on? So yeah, I like that. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, the notion that for you to win, someone does have to lose. It's not, I mean, a lot of things in life are not a zero sum game, but sometimes they are.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that concludes this episode. And in the next 5 episodes that we do, where we will talk about films that we want to bring to you, I'm going to try to bring different genres. So I know that the next film I'm going to talk about is going to be an action movie. It is a spaghetti Western that I think a lot of people will enjoy. And I'll try to bring like horror and things like that. This is going to be like a really good exercise for Beth and I, because
Yeah.
we've been you and I became friends, what, like 18 years ago?
Hmm.
Via blog. So, for those of you who are new to this podcast, Beth and I met as part of a much bigger Bollywood blogging circle, and we have a ton of mutual friends from that era, and we all started out there. And then about 3 years ago, Beth and I decided to start our own podcast. But I think sometimes because we've known each other for so long and we've talked about Bollywood for so long with the same people, it's like there's so much shorthand that happens that we completely forget what it's like to be a complete newbie to things. And so I think this is actually going to be a very interesting project for us to do. So we hope you stick along with us. If there are certain genres that you're really fond of, or if there's a particular actor you've really heard of and you want us to talk about them, then we can. But we hope that you'll watch along this series, and after you see our episodes, we hope that you will watch the movies that we're recommending and then talk about those films in the comment section with us. And of course, those of us who are our regular subscribers who have been raised on a diet of Bollywood, please tell us what you think also about Paheli and Jab We Met. And if you have been in the position of suggesting films to your non-Indian friends or your Indian friends who didn't grow up with Bollywood, then tell us what you think would be some good choices for Beth and I to speak about as well. I think that concludes this episode, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Ghost glitter.